Imagine you have not eaten for 2 days. Yesterday, you found the herd. You saw the hoofprints pressed into soft earth. You remembered the bend in the valley, the broken branch, the place where the animals would pass before sunset. Then the sky opens. Not a drizzle, a cold, pounding rain that turns dust into glue, washes tracks into nothing, and keeps falling through the night. Now your plan is gone. No clear trail, no dry firewood, no safe crossing at the river. One bad step on wet stone, one twisted ankle, and your body becomes meat for something waiting in the dark. You are not relaxing indoors. You are trapped. And for ancient humans, a week of rain was not bad weather. It was a survival test. So what did they do when the world outside became almost impossible to move through? Stay with me. This is where the strange part begins. Now compare that to your life. Rain hits the roof, and your brain hears comfort. White noise. A slower morning. A reason to stay inside and let the world blur behind glass. But that is the modern version. For most of our species' story, the same sound meant something sharper. Wet skin loses heat fast. A dry sleeping place can turn into a cold puddle before sunset. A rock shelter that felt safe at noon can begin dripping from the ceiling by night. And you are not the only animal looking for cover. Predators want dry ground too. Snakes, cats, hyenas, insects, frightened prey. Hungry scavengers rain presses the entire ecosystem into fewer sheltered places. It does not just fall from the sky. It squeezes the world. So the mismatch is strange. Your modern brain hears rain and thinks sleep. Your ancient brain heard rain and thought survive. And that is why, when rain lasted for days, the first job was not sleeping, not eating. It was keeping the fire alive. Imagine a small group under a rock shelter somewhere around 50,000 years ago. The rain has been hitting stone for so many hours that no one remembers the exact moment it began. The air smells like wet hide, smoke, damp hair, and old ash. Children press their knees into their chests. Their teeth click softly. Someone coughs because the smoke has nowhere clean to go. Near the back of the shelter, one older woman sits beside the fire. Or maybe it is a teenage boy with tired eyes and black ash on his fingers. This is not a small job. This is not what you give to someone because they are weak. This is survival work. Because controlling fire and creating fire from nothing are not the same skill. Fossil records suggest humans were using fire deep in prehistory, and evidence from Wonderwork Cave may reach back close to 1 million years. But reliable firemaking, under pressure, in wet conditions, with hungry people watching that, is a different problem. A flame is heat. A flame is light. A flame is food that will not poison you as easily. A flame is a wall between your children and the eyes outside. So while the rain owns the valley, the Firekeeper owns the future. And when that flame stays alive, another question appears. If you cannot go outside, what do your hands do? They work. That is the first answer. When rain trapped ancient humans, one of the most important people in the shelter may have been the person doing almost nothing dramatic. No spear in hand, No chase across open ground. No heroic leap over a river. Just ash, breath, and patience. The firekeeper pulls glowing coals deeper into the shelter, away from the wet edge. They feed the flames slowly, not greedily, because a fire can be killed by too little fuel or smothered by too much. Wet branches are split open to reach the dry heart inside. Bark is peeled, scraped, tested. A tiny curl of dry fiber becomes more valuable than a fresh kill you cannot reach. If birch bark is nearby, it matters. If dry grass has been hidden under stone, it matters. If someone remembered to bring a bundle of tinder from the last camp, that memory may keep everyone breathing through the night. This is where survival becomes almost invisible. The group does not need one strong hunter. It needs a chain of careful people. Thousands of years later, Utsi, the 300-year-old man found in the Alps, still carried fire-related material among his personal gear. Think about that. After stone tools, after clothing, after complex travel through mountains, losing fire remained dangerous enough that a person carried insurance against it. Wait, if fire was so ancient, why keep carrying tinder? Because knowing fire exists is not the same as having it when your fingers are numb, your fuel is soaked, and darkness is closing in. Firekeeping was not a side task. It was the skill that made every other skill possible. But once the flame was stable, the cave changed. It became a workshop. A rainy day looks useless, only if you think survival means movement. But inside a shelter, stillness can become production. Someone straightens a spear shaft by heat. Someone chips a stone edge until one sharp flake jumps free. Someone grinds bone against sandstone. Someone cuts hide into strips and tests the seam with a thumbnail. Someone twists fibers together until a weak strand becomes a cord strong enough to bind, carry, pull, trap, or repair. This is the part we underestimate. A hunt may begin outside, but the weapon is born inside. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers found evidence of ochre processing around 100,000 years ago, including abalone shells used like mixing containers. Ochre was not just red dirt. It could mark bodies, treat hides, decorate objects, or become part of social signals we cannot fully recover. And then there is cordage. Tiny twisted fibers from Abri du Marat, associated with Neanderthal activity, have been dated by researchers to roughly 41,000 to 52,000 years ago. At Hola Fells, later evidence points to tools connected with rope making. That sounds humble until you ask one question. What can you build without string? No tied spear points, no nets, no bags, no stitched clothing, no reliable bundles, no traps that wait for you while you sleep. Cordage was the soft skeleton of human technology. Hard stone gets the glory because it survives in the ground, but fiber may have done the quiet work. Rain gave ancient humans something rare, forced time. Not empty time, focused time. The sky closed the hunting ground, and the shelter opened a factory. But humans did not only make objects around the fire. They made something harder to see. Culture. First, they made the shelter livable. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, researchers found evidence that people were making bedding from grasses and sedges around 77,000 years ago. Some of those plant materials may have included leaves with insect-repelling properties. That detail is small and enormous, because it means ancient people were not simply collapsing on cold ground. They were arranging sleep, managing pests, choosing plants for effects their bodies had learned to trust. A shelter was not just a hole in stone. It was a home that had to be maintained. Now imagine the rain going into its fourth day. The fire is alive. The tools are being repaired. The children have stopped shivering. Outside, the tracks are gone. But inside, the animals are still present in memory. Someone describes the herd's path. Someone imitates the movement of a wounded deer. Someone shows a child where the spear should enter. Someone remembers the cliff, the mud, the sound of hooves before panic. This is where the cave becomes a memory machine. Later, in places like Chauvet Cave, with art often dated around 36,000 years ago, and in Sulawesi, where ancient figurative cave paintings push deep into the human past, we see something that feels almost impossible. Animals moving across stone after the animals themselves are gone. But wait, what if cave art was not born from boredom? What if it came from fire, shelter, time, and the need to store information outside one skull? If you are still here, subscribe, because the deeper we go into the cave, the stranger humans become. A rainy week could turn a band of hunters into teachers, makers, storytellers, planners. The cave was a bedroom. The cave was a workshop. The cave was a classroom. And sometimes it may have been a stage where fear became memory, and memory became culture. But wait, if rain was so dangerous, why did some groups learn to turn it into an advantage? But wait, this is where the story turns. Rain was not always the enemy. After the storm, the ground softened, footprints held their shape, buried roots loosened under the mud. Mushrooms pushed through dead leaves. Insects crawled upward. Flying termites could rise in sudden clouds, turning the wet air into food. And humans were not the only ones paying attention. Chimpanzees use tools to fish for termites. Birds shift their feeding after storms. Predators wait near shelter. Prey move differently when the ground is soaked. So the special thing was not that humans knew how to avoid rain. That is not enough. A lizard can hide under stone. A fox can wait in a den. A chimp can take advantage of termites after rainfall. Animal opportunism reacts to the moment. Human preparation reaches past it. The difference was not hiding from rain. It was using the trapped hours to prepare for the world after rain. That is the real answer. Ancient humans did not simply hide from the rain. They turned rain into forced stillness. And forced stillness may have changed everything. When the valley was closed, the shelter became a living brain. One person kept the fire alive. One repaired a spear point. One stitched a torn hide before cold air found the gap. One twisted fibers into cord. One taught a child how to read the shape of a hoofprint. One remembered where the river flooded last season. One described where the herd might move when the sky cleared. Not panic. Preparation. Not wasted time. Stored survival. This is where culture stops looking like an abstract word and starts looking like wet hands around a fire. Anthropologist Polly Weissner's research on Johansi Firelit conversations found that night talk around flames shifted away from practical daytime tasks and toward stories, ritual, social memory, and imagined worlds. That detail matters, because human culture was not born only from genius. It was born from shared time, shared heat, shared memory. A single brain can remember one trail. A group around a fire can remember a landscape. So when rain trapped ancient humans in one place, it may have done something strange. It slowed the body down, but it sped the group mind up. And the strange part is, you still carry part of that system inside you. Today, when rain hits your window, you may want to lie down, make coffee, open a screen, and disappear under a blanket. That feeling is not random. Your body is responding to an ancient pattern. Less movement, more warmth. Stay close to light. Listen to voices. Repair what is broken. Think before moving again. The problem is that modern boredom has been separated from the survival task it once belonged to. Your ancestors were not scrolling because they had nothing to do. They were waiting, watching, sharpening, stitching, teaching, remembering. The rain slowed them down so they could become more prepared. And maybe that is why rainy days still pull your mind inward. Maybe some old part of you hears the water, feels the dim light, and reaches for the oldest human circle warmth, shelter, story. So the next time you hear rain on the window, remember this. That sound was once the opening drum beat for one of the most important jobs our species ever had. Subscribe. Remember the person from the beginning, hungry for 2 days, the hoofprints erased, the trail gone, the river rising, the fire shrinking inside a wet shelter while the dark outside begins to move. At first, it looks like failure. The hunt stopped, the plan broken, the body trapped. But now you can see the twist. That same rain gave someone time to make a sharper spear point, a stronger cord, a drier bed, a better story for the child who would need it later. Humanity did not survive only because we could run, hunt, or fight. We survived because we could turn interruption into preparation. Rainy days were not empty days. They were culture-building days. So the next time rain taps against your window, listen closer. The storm did not stop us. It taught us to wait. If this video made you hear rain differently, subscribe